Hey there! I have a 2002 Mercury piece of shit. That's right, it's a Mercury piece of shit, and it's a piece of shit. Come over here, let me show you something. Alright, what we have here, I've already taken this apart. What we have is a cracked intake manifold. Now, you cannot really see the crack too well because it doesn't show up. Well, right here, this gray line right here you see is a crack. Right here, this crack right here, maybe right, you can see it right here. This crack here goes all the way down the intake manifold, and this part of the manifold is where the coolant runs through. See, you have the radiator hose right here going to the radiator, and what happens is the plastic trash that they put right here, it'll crack because you have heat, pressure, and chemicals running through the plastic. That is a big recipe for fucking disaster. And if we look inside here, the owner of this car has the maintenance records from good old reliable Walmart here. We look at this one. All right, this specific one. All right, now transmission fluid. Let me see. They check the oil, the grease fittings, the oil pressure. Transmission fluid not applicable. Transfer case fluid not applicable. This car is two-wheel drive, not four-wheel drive, so it does not have a transfer case. But this car does have a transmission. All cars have a transmission, and it says not applicable. Well, shit. Let's look and see why this is not applicable now. We're going to talk about the reason this intake manifold is cracked and all that crazy shit. Now, the coolant runs through this area, this hole here, and it goes around there, around that passage, and goes up through this thing. I think this goes to the heater core or something, and this goes back down into the head down there, I think. Now, or does it? Is that for air? Well, I don't think so. No, that wouldn't be for air. That's for water, because the freaking fitting is right there. So that's for water. Has to be. Do you guys see a transmission fluid dipstick anywhere in the engine bay? Tell me in the comments. Tell me, do you see a transmission fluid dipstick anywhere? We're going over the whole engine bay here very slowly, and we're checking every nook and cranny. And me personally, I do not see one. This is for the motor oil, and the motor oil is usually yellow along with the cap color, and the transmission fluid is usually red or any other color. That's how it is on my GM cars anyway. But no, I don't see any transmission fluid dipstick anywhere in the engine bay. Now, I know you're saying, where is the transmission dipstick? How am I supposed to change the transmission fluid? How am I supposed to check the fluid? Well, apparently, you just don't. You just fucking plain out don't check the transmission fluid. You're not supposed to change it. Hang on. Alright, yeah, you're not supposed to check the transmission fluid. You're not supposed to change the transmission fluid. You don't have to do anything to the transmission in this car. Now, if you believe that, you should just go ahead and sell your car, because you have no business having a car at all, if you believe that. Now, we look at the manual here. Let's go see if we can find the freaking maintenance and care. 211, 207, 209, 211. Alright, so precautions when working on a vehicle. We don't need that because we're smarter than that. We have engine coolant reservoir, engine oil dipstick, brake fluid reservoir, power distribution box, battery, power steering fluid reservoir, engine oil filler cap, air filter assembly, windshield washer fluid reservoir. I don't see anything about the transmission in this fucking book. All right. No transmission fluid dipstick. That is the engineers at Ford Motor Company's fault. And I looked it up online. Where the fuck is the transmission dipstick in the 2002 Mercury Mountaineer? And I looked it up online and it said,
We don't have one. You don't have to change your fluid.
do you seriously believe? Nope. You have to change your fluid. What they call it, they say lifetime transmission fluid. Well, what they're really telling you is your transmission is only going to last as long as your fluid does. Okay? The reason they don't put dipsticks in some cars today is so they can trick you out of your fucking money, out of your pocket, so they can either fix the transmission and make a lot of money doing that, or sell you another car and make a lot of money doing that. Because they don't want you to know that your transmission can and will fuck up if you do not change the fluid in there. No matter if there's a dipstick or not, you have to change the fluid. Now, the reason the intake manifold is cracked in here is probably because of the transmission. That sounds fucking crazy, I know. Alright, but if we think about it, the transmission cooler has antifreeze in it. It has coolant in it. Same thing, pretty much. That antifreeze goes through the transmission, cycles through there, and to cool it off. But what happens if you leave your transmission alone and do not change the fluid? That fluid's going to get hot, and that heat is going to make the coolant hot. Okay? And that coolant is going to run back up through the engine, because it goes through the engine and the transmission at the same time, and it's going to blow something up. All right, you can watch one of Scotty Kilmer's videos. He talked about somebody blew a head gasket just by towing their car with the wheels on the ground, but that's not what happened here. I was driving it and it just blew up one day. All right, the service records that I've seen are like from 5 years ago. Probably more than that. It is 2020 right now. It's late January 2020. Those records are from 2014. Man, I remember 2014. I was sitting in my grandma's house watching Jang Bricks on YouTube, but we're not going to talk about that. That's for another time. Service records. It's bad enough it's from Walmart, but from 6 years ago, this car is pretty much done for. All right, but luckily, it's in my hands, and I'm gonna try to work my magic and see if we can make this thing roadworthy again. Okay, so this transmission has had some work done to it as far as I know. I'm not sure if they replaced the whole transmission or they just rebuilt it and put new seals in it. But when I used to drive it, it was feeling a little bit weird. Alright, and back then I didn't know much about transmissions. Okay, hold up. I don't know everything about a transmission. I'm only 19 years old. I'm not in college. I don't know everything there is to know about an automatic transmission. But I think that there is no physical connection between your drive shaft and your engine. It's all oil pumps, like pushing fluid through the freaking transmission. Let me show you an example here. We go back here, look at we cannot, can we go back here? Yeah, we can. Gotta go all the way around this junk and this garbage, everything back here. And we see this combine head. Now, most of you kind of know how a combine head works, right? This shit spins, and it's supposed to spin, but there's garbage in the way over there. Alright, it's supposed to spin. How does it spin? How the hell does it spin? Well, shit. Here we have a couple of hydraulic fluid hoses. And I think one pumps the fluid in, the other pumps the fluid out. And what happens is fluid comes in here and it turns some kind of fan, and the excess, or the fluid that turns it comes back out here and back into the combine or something, and then it's all chain driven from there up to the head or the cylinder. So there is no physical connection. There's no gears or drive belts from up here down to here to go in the shaft and yeah, all that crazy stuff. It's all hydraulics. Okay? Kind of like an automatic transmission. Yeah. There's no physical connection between this and that besides whatever is holding up the whole head, all right? Now bear with me. I only know stuff about front wheel drive automatic transmissions because I've worked with front wheel drive automatic transmissions. I'm not 100% sure if there's any physical connection between the engine and the drive shaft here or not. Don't mind the flat tire. I got an air compressor. I'll take care of that later. But yeah, I mean, it could easily have a physical connection because it's straight going down, like with the front wheel drive. You got the engine, and then the transmission comes back around, and it loops, and then here's your drive shaft. But yeah, long story short, you do not want to destroy your engine and your transmission by running low on transmission fluid. Now what I want to do is I'm going to put this car on the lift, open up the transmission, and see what the fluid looks like, because this car does not move worth a damn. Alright, you start it up, put it in drive, and it doesn't even move without pushing on the gas. Alright, you got to push on the gas. Now if you have a license, you probably know that if you put a car in drive it and take your foot off the brake, it should start rolling, but this one don't anymore. Don't take your car to Walmart and don't think you don't have to change the transmission fluid just because there is not a transmission fluid dipstick in there. Alright? You're gonna destroy something. Like, there's no doubt about it. There is not a transmission in this world that is going to last without changing transmission fluid in it. Just simple as that, alright? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate to be a little bit realistic with you. I don't like to be realistic. I like to be optimistic, but this is how the real world is, though. So, fucking, yeah. You have to change the transmission fluid. There's no way around it. If you don't change your transmission fluid, sooner or later you're going to have to change your whole transmission. Maybe even your engine, alright? Because your dumbass fucked up and you did not change your fluid.